New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. New Thought Media Network proudly presents A Science of Mind Saturday Conversations. Learn more about the Science of Mind philosophy, faith, and way of life. Join our team of experts for a weekly deep dive discussion. Come study the science of mind, chapter by chapter, and resources from the Science of Mind archives. Plan to join us every Saturday, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, only on the New Thought Media Network.
Hello. Namaste and greetings, everyone. Hello, Wayne. So, who am I? Rev Dr. Ray. And today we will be talking about what? More about the science of mind. Well, first and foremost, let us thank my brother from another mother, Reverend Elzia, who last week, did you miss last week? Because last week he talked about what it does, right? Today we're going to talk about, well, how to use it. If by chance you missed last week, if you missed any weeks, make sure you go to the archives and tune in and watch. See, because the only way we're going to ever create a world that works for all is by putting the teaching to practice. So if you are ready, let me know. Put in the chat, say hello, say happy end of January, peace on earth, blessing the monks walking for peace. Let us gather. So people, let's begin. So where are we starting? Well, we're going to start with how to use it. Well, in order to talk about how to use it, we have to identify what it is. So first of all, it. Plain and simply, we are identifying that consciousness, there is only one mind, and that mind is God, and that mind is fill in the blank. That mind is infinite, that mind is powerful, that mind is all wisdom, all intelligence, all creativity, all imagination, and that mind is your mind now. So the actual thing is, when we talk about, and we're going to dive deeper into this, when we talk about how to use it, how do you use your mind? How do you use your thoughts? How do you think the things that you think? You know, as the Scarecrow said in The Wizard of Oz, I would while away the hours conferring with the flowers, right? I would think a thought I've never thought before. Oh, in other words, he'd have a new thought. Okay, you with me? Okay. Then let's dive in and have a conversation about hold on, slight technical difficulty. Robert, if you do not mind, can you advance the slide? I am having a technical difficulty at the present moment. Come on. Thank you. So, the beginning of this chapter, Dr. Holmes starts us off right at right there, right at the very beginning. He says, one of the great difficulties in the new order of thought is that we are likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. Right off the bat. Too much theory and too little practice. As a matter of fact, we can only know, now here's the thing, we can only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration. Breathe that in. That which we can prove, or that which we cannot prove, may or may not be true. But that which we can prove certainly must be and is the truth. So, what can we prove? When we talk about this thing about ideas, so for example, and I'm going to, call on Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski as my example. There was a time where this New Thought Media Network did not exist. And then he had an idea that he put into practice. And as a result of the idea and the practice, what happened? This New Thought Media Network, a demonstration, an actual demonstration of how thought becomes form. How are we doing the same thing with whatever it is we desire to experience? Well, first, we have to know what it is that we want to experience. Many of us are operating on a default setting of the collective consciousness. You may have heard the phrase, we are not bound by precedent, but bound by principle. Good morning, Shay, right? Like bound by principle, not precedent. In other words, just because there has always been doesn't mean there needs to continue to be. So I've had conversation with people about, things like war, and people say, well, there's always been war. There will always be war. Then you are bound by precedent, not by principle. Dr. Robert was bound by principle and knew how to take an idea, a vision, a goal, a dream, and manifest it into reality. So once again, as Dr. Holmes invites us, one of the great difficulties is that we theorize so much, but actually practice far too little. So are we ready to actually, dive in and indulge in what the actual practice consists of? Right? Like that's the question. Are we willing to actually engage in the practice? Because we can't do anything. Oh, wait, pause. Because the funny thing is, we're actually doing the practice. Just the thing is, we're not doing it as effectively as we could. And what I mean by that is, are you, am I, are we thinking individuals? If we are thinking and feeling and acting, then we are already practicing the law of mind in action. We are already doing this thing. But are we doing it in the most effective way possible in order to create, in order to manifest, in order to demonstrate what we desire? A world that works for all. Peace on earth, goodwill to all. Health and well-being in my body, my relationships, my finances. If that's the case, then I must be responsible for my mental equivalent and how I am engaging in the practice of science of mind and spirit more actively, more effectively. Breathe. Dr. Holmes goes on to say, It is easy enough to rush about shouting that there are no sick people. And like we could go on with that because a lot of people do this. We could go on and shout that there are no sick people, there are no poor people, there are no on and on and on. Because, after all, it is all an illusion, right? No, stop with that. It is easy enough to go about rushing and shouting, there are no sick people. But that concept, that thought, that shouting will never heal those who are experiencing or appear to be sick. It is easy to proclaim that there are no needy people, people who are in need. Anyone can say this, whether they be wise or unwise or otherwise. We shall be compelled to do more than announce a principle, no matter how true it may be, right? We are called to live the principle, not just talk it. Many people are great with talking the talk, but when it comes down time to actually live it, to walk the walk, then it's more challenging. Dr. Holmes said in Sermon by the Sea, you find me 1,000 people in the world who know what religious science is and use it and live it as a way of life. And I myself will live to see, and he didn't say a world that works for all, but he said it in his own way. And I myself will live to see a new world, a new heaven, and a new earth here. Find 1,000 people who know that and use it and live it, and the world will no longer be famished. Now, I don't know if he meant literally 1,000 people. Could have been a figurative thing, and that's neither here nor there. The point being, when we reach a tipping point of people who not only know what it is, which isn't it interesting that if you ask the average person within CSL or New Thought in general, what is New Thought? What is CSL? What is science of mind and spirit? Many times we go into what it's not. And if you ask 100 people the same question, very easily you may get 100 answers that are so different that you don't even realize they're talking about the same thing. Now, I'm not, proposing the idea that we should have a standard statement. But what I am proposing is if you ask 1,000 chefs, what is a burger? Their answers are going to be similar enough that no one is going to think one is describing salad. So what does it mean to know what the teaching is, to practice it, and to live it as a way of life? How do we get to that space? And therein lies part of the difference between, we could think about a martial artist, we could think about a dancer, a painter, a sculptor. You can become a great technician of a skill, of a talent. But the moment it becomes part of who you are, that's when the artist emerges. You can cook a great meal, follow the recipe, and, I can do all the steps and it's delicious. But when you reach a level of mastery, something else happens. Something magical happens. Something mystical happens that the technician misses. So how do we become artists of this thing called mind, this thing called life? Good morning, Linda. How do we become people who actually live the teaching? And one thing that I often say, in my mind, I conceptualize the era we are in now is Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0. So in my mind, I sort of conceptualize it like Prayer isn't simply something I do. Prayer is how I show up. I don't simply say amen at the end of a prayer or a treatment. My life is my amen. How do I embody the teaching so that no matter where I go, no matter who I meet, even in my hello to someone, I am conferring a blessing of joy, peace, and harmony, just in a hello? How can we engage in the teaching to that degree is our invitation. It has been proved that by thinking correctly and by a conscious mental use of the law, we can use it to do definite things for us, through us, by us, and as us. This has been proven. What did I say about Dr. Robert? It has been proven that the mind and access to the mind and embodiment of and taking action brings about a cause that is definite. Dr. Robert didn't have the idea to say, I'm going to create a new thought media network, and in 6 months, he opened a restaurant that sold vegan burgers. What? No. I have an idea for a media network, and what was created? A media network for a definite purpose. And Linda said, I know healing is. I have known and experienced this. That means Linda has proven it for herself. There is a definite experience of what she's referring to. So how can we also experiment and explore with this thing called mind, called thoughts, called beliefs? How can we have a definite idea? And the definite idea, because oftentimes we'll say things like, well, don't be so attached to the thing, right? And I'm gonna keep using Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski as my example today, because I love that man. So I can guarantee you that as he's forming the idea, New Thought Media Network, if the opportunity to say, well, let's make it a streaming platform, across all major networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, BBC, everybody see. And here's your stream of income. I can guarantee you, as long as Dr. Robert is allowed and permitted to maintain his integrity with the teaching and the integrity of the shows and all that was his vision and dream, you have complete control over that. You retained all of the rights, and yes, because we want to be in more homes, in more cars, on more phones. So he would not say, but my vision was just this thing on the internet. Well, no, because I know him well enough to know his mind is always morphing and growing and expanding, because he is a demonstration of what it means to be open at the top. How can we also practice the same concept? That's why I put the graphic of the young woman in the laboratory, this laboratory of life. How are we exploring and experimenting with our thoughts, our emotions and feelings, our actions, in order to demonstrate we know what we're doing. We are doing it consciously, purposefully, and effectively. By conscious thinking, we give conscious direction to it. But what was it again? Mind, creation, imagination, the vision. We give conscious direction to it. And it, consciously or unconsciously, responds to our advance along the line of our conscious or subjective direction. So I'm sure you've probably heard the phrase before, energy flows where attention goes. So where is our attention? Is our attention on peace? Then that's where the energy goes. Now, that is not an invitation to deny or bypass or engage in metaphysical malpractice or metaphysical malfeasance. It is an invitation to recognize, in the same way we as metaphysicians, we are invited to do the same thing that physicians do. A physician sees the patient in the condition when they are in the ER or the OR. There's a shark bite. They don't ignore it and say, there's no such thing as shark bites. There's no such thing as injuries. They see it for what it is, while knowing and having the vision of how do I direct conscious direction of my mind, my thoughts, my awareness and knowledge of human anatomy, and direct it through my body into purposeful and directed action to heal and help, suture, etc., whatever the patient needs. How are we invited to do the same thing? Because it must and will, because it already does, will respond to everyone, because it is law, and law is no respecter of persons. In other words, like we know the law of gravity, law of flotation and buoyancy, laws of thermodynamics, they don't care. Gravity's not going to pop up one day and say, you know, that Reverend Ray gets on my nerves. I'm going to stop working for him and let him fly off the earth into outer space. The law of gravity works for everybody the same way. Young or old, tall or short, black, white, and other, it doesn't matter. Gravity works. Well, the law works the same way. So whether it is a physical law, what we talk about in the sciences and whatnot, physics and whatnot, or if it's a spiritual law, law is law and it responds accordingly. So how well do we understand the working of the law, how it operates, in order to operate within it more effectively? So I'm going to do a remix of this, but just for the sake of going over it. The practice of the science of mind calls for a positive understanding of the spirit of truth, a willingness to let the inner spirit guide us, with the conscious knowledge that the law of the Lord is perfect, Psalms 19:7. And we must believe this to be a fact. Now, if I were to ask you, what did Dr. Holmes mean when he said that? What does that mean? Well, I often do a remix just for my own understanding when I sit back and say, okay, so if my grandson, when he was 9 and he would watch, my Sunday messages and have conversation about it, and I would often think, how can I say this to him as a 9-year-old in a way where he will understand it? Hence the remix concept. So I started remixing to give myself greater ability in expressing this thing called science of mind. So the remix is: the practice of the science of mind and spirit calls for a life-affirming understanding and application of the spirit of truth, which means we trust the universal wisdom, love, peace, power, etc., to guide, to inspire, to motivate us in ways that change how we show up in the world. Because we have the conscious knowledge that the wholeness, perfection, and completeness that God is also true of us. And we must believe and live as though this were a fact. How many of us are living, moving, and having our beingness as though our wholeness, perfection, and completeness is, without a doubt, a fact, no matter what? So yes, I'm experiencing back pain or shoulder pain, or I have surgery scheduled for Thursday, or my bank account says, none of that changes the divine fact that you are whole, perfect, and complete. In the realm of the absolute, you are whole, perfect, and complete. The essence of all that you are is whole, perfect, and complete. You are a divine expression of wholeness itself, perfection itself, completeness itself. So we could say it this way. What does it mean to be human? If I have a cold, am I still human? If I have surgery scheduled, am I still human? If I have absolutely no money in my bank account and I end up unhoused, am I still human? There is nothing that can happen to me. There's nothing I could do or say that changes it and somehow turns me into a tree. No matter what, I'm human. Well, no matter what, you are the divine expressing. No matter what, you are whole, you are perfect, and you are complete. The more we can embody that as a lived reality, the more we understand are working in alignment with mental equivalence, the law of mind in action, etc. So pause for a moment and say to yourself, I recognize that I am whole, perfect, and complete. Even if I don't feel it, I acknowledge that it's true. Right? It's the same idea of, I'm experiencing the flu, but I know that my health and well-being is there. That's why I rest and I, drink tea and, some chamomile and because I know healing. I know health and well-being is, so I give myself the space to experience what I experience, to feel what I feel, while also knowing the truth of my being is health and well-being. So once again, the more we understand, the more we embody this idea of being whole, perfect, and complete, and live it, breathe it, speak it, the more we are able to engage our mind, our consciousness in ways that change and transform not only our individual lives, but that of the collective consciousness as well. So once again, here is an example of a young girl in a laboratory, and that is our divine example of, so what does it mean to, and actually, let me go back. What does it mean to be in the laboratory of life? What does it mean to actually use it? So I'm going to give you, some action steps. Number one, identify what it is. It, the one mind, it, the effective use of our mental equivalents, our thoughts, the ways we communicate, our emotions and feelings, and our actions. In order for us to effectively, all four of these pillars should be aligned in a way that gives us greater access to navigating life. In other words, how often have we set New Year's resolutions? Mind. We've shared, Dr. Robert, I have made a New Year's affirmation that I am going to exercise every day. Prior to New Year's, I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. New Year's comes. Dr. Roberts says, so Ray, have you been exercising? No. My actions do not match the energy, the emotions, the feelings. They're not matching the words I spoke, nor are they matching the initial thoughts, because a new thought has stepped in to say, do it tomorrow. A new feeling, do it later. Watch TV today. There's a new Marvel movie on. We are always in alignment with something. We are in alignment with that which is life affirming, or we're in alignment with that which is not. Because once again, the law is going to respond to everyone, no matter what. So how can I effectively align my thoughts, all of my beliefs, etc., the manner in which I communicate, my emotions and feelings, and my actions, so all of them, no matter if you looked at them, if you followed me, reality TV show, New Thought Media Network, it's coming this fall. Let's follow Reverend Ray. So cameras are following me every day, all day long. At the end of a week, will you see all four of these in alignment, or will you see something else? Imagine the cameras are following you. What do we see? Number two, identify the means that it is engaged. How do we engage the one mind? How do we engage our mental equivalents? Well, what are we believing? What are we thinking? What are we imagining? Noting that worry is a form of ineffective use of the imagination. But what if? What if? That's imagination. What if I get on the plane and we're attacked by sharks? That's the ineffective use of the imagination. That's worry. When I used to be a fundamentalist Christian, oh my, we used to say that worry is akin to praying to the devil. What? Yes. So, how are we engaging our thoughts, our beliefs? So if we sat down and had, some conversation, and I say, I'm interviewing you, and I ask you questions. So, Shay, may I ask you a question? And I'm just pointing, you don't have to answer. Shay, can you tell me, what do you believe about? And I pick something, Santa Claus. And Shay shares what the beliefs about Santa Claus are. And then I ask some more probative questions. Well, we're engaging the mind. When I ask someone or someone asks me, what is New Thought? What is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is a practitioner? What is, et cetera, et cetera? That conversation is engaging the mind, engaging the mental equivalents. We are training ourselves. We are exercising the muscles of consciousness. How do you create a world that works for all? Well, before we figure out how to create it, what is it? Have the conversation. What does that mean? What does it entail? What does it mean to you? Have the conversation. That's how we engage the mind. Examine, why do I believe what I believe about this? Why do I believe what I believe about that? Can I change that belief? Is that an effective belief? Never really thought about that until now, right? Like that's the goal. Number three, how do we discern between effective and ineffective engagement of it? Are the beliefs, the thoughts, the imaginings, etc., are they all aligned with what you want to experience? Do you want to experience happiness? What does that mean for you? What does happiness smell like, look like, taste like, feel like for you? Now let's reverse engineer it. If happiness, based upon that criteria that you named, what thoughts will lead you there? What forms of communication will lead you there? What emotions and feelings will lead you there? What actions will lead you there? And when we understand what this is, and I mean truly understand, then this is able to be there even when other things show up that may appear to be the contrary, to be in opposition. For example, a couple of years ago when I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, there were all the feelings and all the things about, could this be the end and yada, yada, all that stuff. Yes, because it comes up with, thoughts of being human. But then because I do my practice, my mind is able to be in a space of, I'm good, no matter what. I have joy, even in the midst of, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's next. I don't know how to, even in the midst of, I almost died. Even in the midst of the joy, the gratitude, it's still there. In the same way that my being human is still there, no matter what. No matter what I don and put on for Halloween, when we're doing our Halloween stuff in the neighborhood, doesn't matter what mask I put on, doesn't matter what costume I put on. What's actually there? A human being. That human being is a divine expression of God, the universe, source. So it is possible, both and. And then number 4, do it. Start thinking, start believing, start visioning, start praying, start imagining, start communicating, feeling, and doing all of the things that are aligned with the desired experience. As I gave the example before, Rev Dr. Robert had a vision, New Thought Media Network. He didn't simply sit back and say, yes, let's create New Thought Media Network. So I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow came and went, and next week, there's meow, 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 3 weeks from now. Rev Dr. Robert said, okay, cool. This is what came up. Let me vision. This is what now came up. Prayer. This is what now came up. Team, gather, board, logos, create, connections, manifestation. He did it. He took the idea, went through the practices, action became form. And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh. How do we take the Word as thought? The Word as literal communication, the Word as emotion and feeling, and the Word as action, and bring about the divine manifestation of whatever it is that we are choosing to create individually and collectively. Dr. Holmes tells us that if we change the consciousness, then the false condition will disappear. For example, change the thinking that caused whatever, and the whatever will disappear. In the same way that we can say, well, what is causing the leak? Change that, and the leak will stop. What is causing the fever? Change that, and the fever will stop. What is causing the headache? Change that, and the headache will. What's causing poverty? Sexism, racism, hatred, war? Change that, and it will change. Change the consciousness that is creating, perpetuating the conditions, the effects, and the experiences, and they must also change. Right? We already do this. We do this every day. We change things in order to eat something different, in order to wear something different, in order to say different things. We already do this. The thing is, we tend to not apply it to things like poverty, racism, sexism, hatred, xenophobia, etc. We tend to do this with things like parking spaces and green lights and princes and princesses, palaces. We tend to do it with the stuff that's like, oh, cool. But what about So the invitation is, yes, do for whatever it is that you desire, but let's also do it for the collective so that we collectively are stepping into an era of a world that works for all. Let us analyze this. Dr. Holmes says, there's this person who finds himself impoverished. He wishes to change the condition. He knows it is not in accord with the ultimate reality that, the spirit imposes no limitations. He knows this. Therefore, he knows that the apparent limitation, the apparent condition, has no real law that supports it. It is simply an experience of consciousness. Even though the experience may be physical, he wishes a definite result in the opposite direction. The opposite direction being what? He finds himself impoverished. The opposite direction in abundance and prosperity, etc. That's okay, cool. I got you. But then what? Then, first, he realizes that the law of life is a law of liberty, of freedom. Pause for a brief commercial announcement. This is one of the reasons why we say that science of mind and spirit and new thought in general is a liberation theology. That line right there, the law of life is a law of liberty and of freedom. That is liberation theology. Now, back from our brief commercial announcement. The person now states that this law of liberty is flowing through him and into all of his affairs. But the image of limitation persists. Here is a definite contradiction of his statements of freedom. Right here, he must stop and declare that these images of limitation are neither person, place, nor thing. That they have no power, personality, nor presence, and therefore no real law to support them. Pause, let's check in. This is not saying that there are not people and systems in place that cause harm. There's a system in place that lets the wealthy 1% take advantage and live off of the backs and burden and work of the other 99%. There is a system, a caste system of wealth that exists. But what this is saying is it's not a thing unto itself. In the same way that in the Christian teaching, generally there's the idea that God is in heaven and Satan is in hell, and God's in charge of all of the good things and Satan is in charge of all of the bad things. There is no God of impoverishment. There is no God of poverty. There is no God of lack and limitation. There is no person sitting somewhere pulling all of the levers that control. That doesn't exist. This is why someone like Harriet Tubman, in the midst of a system of enslavement, liberty and freedom, and not just for herself. Like a good Samaritan, she returned to bring liberty and freedom to others. So once again, just want to reiterate. So where are we now? So next, the person, he does not believe in them, right? And they cannot operate through him. They can't. This person is free from their influence forever. He then begins to fill his thought with the idea of faith. And once again, it's important to be mindful. It's life-affirming faith. Because non-life affirming faith is actually a thing. And it creates the opposite of what we desire, just like worry does. The expectancy of good and the realization of plenty. He senses and mentally sees right action in his life. He puts his whole trust in the law of good And it becomes very real to him as he definitely speaks it into being. What was that I said earlier? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And okay, so keep that in mind. He speaks it into reality, not just with the words, but with the ways that he lives. We speak with our actions, right? Have you ever heard a picture is worth 1,000 words? So an image, how we show up, can also speak. So he speaks it into being, into his being and into the being of his affairs. He denies anything and everything that contradicts this realization of truth. As the primordial word of the creator or of creation itself is the only thing which explains creation, so every person's word, your word, partaking of this original nature, as it does, must reproduce the creative function in their life, in your life, at the level of their consciousness, your consciousness, of one life back of it, in, through, and as all. We do not put the power into the word, but we do let the power of the law flow through it. And the one who most completely believes in this power will produce the best results. So pause for a second. Once again, let's go back to my example of who? Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski. Here's Reverend Dr. Robert. I'm going to create New Thought Media Network. And here's Reverend Ray. And Reverend Ray is, I'm going to make a movie. Okay. Reverend Dr. Robert does all of the things, mental equivalent, prayer, visioning, meditation. Reverend Dr. Ray twiddles his thumbs and plays some video game on his phone. Because Reverend Dr. Robert believes in his mind, believes in the law of mind and action, believes in his divine power. Reverend Dr. Ray believes that this is a really fun game. So once again, the one who most completely believes in this power is the one who will receive, the one who will produce, the one who will manifest the most effective and best results. If one doubts their ability to give an effective treatment, then they should specifically treat for themselves to remove this doubt. Now, that may seem circular. Well, if I doubt my ability to treat, why am I treating for myself? Therefore, I say, then meet with a trusted practitioner or minister and work with them to remove the doubt. Because it is difficult to believe you can do a thing if you don't believe you can do a thing. And so we should treat until we get results. Treat. Engage in the practice until you feel whole, perfect, and complete, until you know you are whole, perfect, and complete, until you have the loving relationships that you desire, the peace in your life, the whatever that is, treat until then. Isn't that what the monks are doing, walking for? They're walking for peace, no matter what. Rain, snow, heat, sleet, hail, injury, blisters, pain. They walk. Do we walk? No matter what. Treat until we get results, until there comes into our objective experience the actual outpouring of our subjective words. Because the practitioner consciously removes the apparent obstruction and leaves the field open to a new influx of spirit. They resolve things into thought, dissolve the non-life affirming appearance, whatever the condition may be, by recognizing only perfection. The practitioner, just like a medical professional, an artist, a mechanic, a pilot, etc., must know that their word, expression is life, being the activity of truth, removes all obstructions, all beliefs in the opposite of what they know is possible from the pathway of the individual that they are working with. Breathe. So, the very first thing in review before we close out, how do you use it? So, what is it? The one mind. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your consciousness. How do you actively identify, there's this thought that I have about money? Identify it. Discern, is it life affirming? Is it in alignment with what you desire? Do you catch yourself saying things like, well, money doesn't grow on trees? Do you catch yourself being semi-hypocritical in saying to one person, well, if you can't get to convention, just pray for more money? It's because you have scarcity consciousness. And yet, I, as a minister, am not doing the same thing when it comes to congregants and funds. Wait a minute, I can tell you to do it, but so be very mindful and conscious of what is it and how am I engaging it? How am I discerning and putting it into practice? And then thoughts, words, communication, emotions, and feelings. Now, how am I showing up as a living embodiment of it? Do my actions show you what I believe? Do my actions demonstrate what I feel? Do my actions demonstrate what my consciousness is? When all of those are firing together, all pistons are running and the machine is operating superbly, exquisitely, then we have stepped into a realm of, now we are artists of this thing called science of mind and spirit. Breathe. So, this concludes this section of the book. Next week, we have the amazing and honorable Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski, who will be introducing the next section, the chapter on In the Beginning, God. So be sure to tune in. Be sure to share, click like, share with friends, family. Come on now, you've been here long enough. And if you're new, welcome to the family. Welcome to the organization. Welcome to the channel. Tune in and watch often. Blessings, much gratitude. Thank you. Thank you, Shay. Appreciate you too. Blessings all. Be well. And until next time, live long and prosper.
Please help us say thank you to all of our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Center for Spiritual Living United Life, Sunshine Cathedral, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Universal Joy Center, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. On behalf of New Thought Media Network, thank you, and please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, come be you.